just a couple of things I want to talk about before we dive into this course this morning. And that is from the very first get-go, right? As we start going through our content today, what I want you guys to know is over the next 3 days, what I hope to do is expose you to a lot of what is web development. What can we do with it? Let's have some fun with it. By no sense should you be walking away from these 3 days with like a, wow, I'm already now like perfectly ready to be a web developer, right? But hopefully by the end of these 3 days, you should definitely feel, wow, this is either really, really fun and I know that I enjoy this, or yikes, this is not very much fun. I don't enjoy this. And so it should be a really good kind of gauge as to whether this is a good potential career opportunity for you, or if it's like, no thanks, I'll pass. Does that kind of make sense? That is really one of the big goals of this course, and kind of the way that we've laid out the curriculum. And so it should be a lot of fun. I'm like the type of teacher, I enjoy having conversation with students. So online people as well, definitely feel free to chime in. If you have questions, just pop up, ask a question. If you're here, if you have a question, go ahead, raise your hand, shout it out, give me a visual cue. But yeah, we should be able to kind of get through some of this content. Okay. Now, there's some environment setup, there's some tooling setup, there's a bunch of that type of stuff. And what I want to just kind of start the morning off with is a simple explanation of what is the web and what is software development, right? And what's kind of nice about this is something that you guys can do. Anybody could do this as long as you're at like a computer and you're using the internet. You just probably can't do it on your phone, right? And that is, we're going to open up what are called the developer tools, and we're going to build a little tiny game directly in our console. Okay, I'm a big fan of games. I think game development's really fun, and I think it's a really good way to teach initial concepts. And so for me, when I use the word game, especially when I'm the one developing it, it's important to also kind of point out this is not going to be a fun game. It's not going to be a super cool game. It's not even going to have graphics, right? But it is going to kind of tell a little bit of a story, and it should be a little bit fun way to start. Does that sound good? Very first thing that I want to do is open up my browser, right? Regardless of, which browser you're using, if you have like Edge installed, or if you have Chrome installed, or even if you have Safari or Opera or any of those other browsers, you pretty much can get to your DevTools by right-clicking and going down to the inspect word. And as far as following along, you don't feel like you have to follow along with me, but we just kind of want to talk through some basics here. So I'm going to open up what is called the console. So I right click, I hit inspect, and then I click on this tab right here called console. And there's a bunch of junk in here that I don't really care about. Okay. And so I'm going to zoom this in real quick, and then I'm going to click on this little button and it's just going to clear the console for me. And so now I have a clean, fresh screen. And what's really great about this is I don't have to install anything extra to just start programming. I have a browser, I have a keyboard, I can access the developer console, so I can start building something. And like I said, this isn't going to be like a super flashy game or anything of that nature, but I just want to kind of talk through some basic concepts of web development. We want to talk about data, because what drives the web, what drives everything that you kind of see and interact with as far as like apps are concerned, it's all code. And so what is code except a bunch of crazy syntax? Okay, and when I use the word syntax, I'm talking about weird characters on your keyboard that you probably have never used before, like these guys. Right? These are what we call the curly braces. We have the square braces. You have parentheses. You probably have used those ones before. And then we also have angle brackets. This is kind of like the bulk of the special characters that we're going to use inside of programming. And it's these special characters that really tend to get in the way for a lot of people, as they're like, I'm interested in coding. How do I do this? And then all of a sudden you start looking at code and you start seeing all these special characters everywhere, and you're like, wow, this thing is absolutely bizarre. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I have no idea what I'm reading. And as I try to practice coding, if I make a mistake like this, everything breaks, right? Because for everything that opens, I also have to make sure it closes. Okay? And so that is what we generally call the syntax. And the funny thing about learning the web is you have to learn 3 separate languages all at the exact same time. You're going to learn HTML, you're going to learn CSS, and you're going to learn JavaScript. And so not only are you learning 3 separate languages, but every one of these languages also have their own unique rules around the syntax. And so why in the world would I teach a class as your very first intro to programming and pick the web? Why pick the web? Because the web actually has this barrier of entry. You really do need to understand all three languages in order to start coding. And the reason why is because the web is king. The web is everywhere. Every single thing that you do on your phone touches the web. Everything you play on the Xbox touches the web. There's a web interface behind pretty much everything. Okay? Your phones, your apps, your laptops, everything. And the reason why we care is because the web is incredibly backwards compatible. It's like the one system that we've released in the last like 50 years where pretty much all of the code that you write today can be backwards compatible to like the very original browsers. Okay. Now that being said, there's some processes involved to make sure it would be that way, but the web's very dynamic. It's a super cool thing, and it really kind of drives the industry in software development. And then another piece of this is the jobs in the industry basically will assume that if you're a software developer and let's say you know C++, super great language, very widely used, common in game development, common in robotics, common in microcontrollers, doesn't exist in the web. If you're a web developer, you don't need to know C++. But if an employer hires you and you know C++, they're going to assume you know how to develop for the web. And so it is definitely one of those things where it's like, if I want to be a software developer, I probably better know the biggest system out there. Okay. That's why I start teaching the web, right? Might as well dive right into it. And then the other thing is the web's incredibly powerful. You can do all sorts of fun stuff. We'll start very, very simple. We'll start as basic as we possibly can today. Okay, we're going to talk about syntax. We're going to talk about things that get in your way. We're going to talk about like all of those initial hurdles to get over. And there's going to be quite a few. And as you guys start coding, and as you go through this course, what I want you to remember is, am I having fun? So if I'm having fun, I'm going to struggle. But if I'm having fun, if I'm enjoying my struggles, then that is a good sign. If you're not having fun and you're struggling, then maybe we either have a very big knowledge gap and we need to kind of fill that, or this just might not be the right career for you. And if that's the case, it's okay, right? Better to find out in a crash course than after 4 or 5 years of college or, paying a bunch of money to come to like an immersive boot camp. Let's go through this, okay? We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to build some cool things. But before we do any of that, we're just going to talk about basic data. We're going to talk about basic syntax, and we're going to start building some cool stuff. And the language that we're going to start with is actually JavaScript. I right-clicked, I opened up my developer tools, I clicked on the console tab, and I can start writing code. But the only language that I can start writing directly inside of my console is JavaScript. Okay, this is a JavaScript console. So if I start writing HTML or CSS in here, even though I'm in the web, the console won't accept HTML. It won't accept CSS. It will only accept JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is the language that makes the web dynamic. JavaScript is what gives, like, every time you click a button, there's a little bit of JavaScript that's running. And so it is the functional piece of the web. And it's cool because it's really good at things like math, right? So I can do like 1 + 1 = 2, super cool. Computers are smart, right? I can do like 123 + 12 divided by 6, and I'm gonna get 125. I don't know why, right? But that's math. Computers are really good at that type of stuff. And so what I kind of envision is, let's build a tiny little game. And again, when I say game, let's illustrate a concept. And my concept is, I need a hero who goes on a quest and fights monsters. And as you fight monsters, if your health runs out, you die. And if you defeat the monster's health, they die. And if you defeat the monster, you win. And if you die, you lose. And so I need to show all of that, and I need to build a little tiny app right here in the console. Sound good? Let's do it. Let's talk through some basics, okay? And the very first thing that I need to do is I need to define a hero. What is a hero, right? Your guys' opinion, what is a hero? A person who does the right thing. What do you know about that person? Bare minimum. Name me any hero, guys. They have to have some sort of name. And so if I have a hero, I'm going to call him Slate Slabrock, because he's going to be like a dwarf and he's going to go slay some goblins. So what do I need to know about Slate according to the computer? I need to define his name. I need to probably set what his starting health is going to be. Does that kind of make sense? So let's do this. Let's give ourselves a hero. And we're going to do that by creating what's called a variable. We're going to use the word let. Let the hero be equal to some curly braces. And again, you maybe have never typed these keys on a keyboard before. If that's the case, totally fine. It's right next to the P. And if you don't hold the shift key, you're going to get the square braces. If you hold the shift key, you're going to get the curly braces. And as I was saying earlier, for every brace that opens, you have to have a brace that closes. So this right here, this is a definition. The hero is an object. And when we start talking about objects, okay, what we start talking about are called key value pairs. And so that's just a complex way of saying like, okay, I have a hero, he's a thing. The hero probably needs, and here I hit shift and then pressed enter in order to give myself a line, because if I just press enter, it'll submit the code. But I have my hero, and my hero is going to have a name. And my name is going to be defined right here. This is the key. And then I use a colon. Again, crazy syntax, right? And then I need to specify the name of my hero. Now, in order to specify the name of my hero, I'm going to use quotation marks. And all of these things have special meaning to the computer. All of these things, like pretty much everything you've seen up here on the screen so far, it's all special characters. It's all very unique to JavaScript, and it's the way that JavaScript has to be written. If I mess up even one of these special characters, something's going to break. That is the syntax of a language. And unfortunately, learning that syntax is a big first hurdle to overcome. And once you get over that very first hurdle, especially in your very first language, picking up other languages, getting into deeper, bigger things inside of programming, it becomes a lot easier. I will say it never becomes easy. It becomes easier, it becomes approachable. You'll know kind of what you're looking at, but there are going to be things that as you have to learn in this career that are going to be difficult. And so what I'm going to type next is going to be the first thing that I type out that's going to be like super unique to me, right? To our game, to the thing that we want to build. Everything else has to be there, okay? And at some point you will just memorize syntax. And the biggest thing that I tell students as they're starting to get into this is try not to get hung up on the syntax. If you're trying to write code and it breaks, most likely it's a syntax thing as you're very first getting started. And if it's a syntax thing, just get help, right? Ask one of the instructors, ask me, jump on Discord, throw your code at somebody, right? Throw your code even at like ChatGPT and say, fix my broken syntax, right? There's a lot of tools out there to help with syntaxy stuff, okay? And so I never want syntax to be the barrier for somebody being able to build something cool, okay? So we have a hero. The hero has a name, and their name is going to be Slate. Now, I'm going to put in a comma, and I'm then going to press enter or shift enter, and I'm going to specify my health. And the health of Slate Slabrock is going to be starting at 100. And then I'm going to press enter, and what I just did is I committed into the computer's memory that hero. So if I now type in hero, the computer understands that hero is that object. Hero has a name. Hero has a health. So that's super cool. Okay. Let's do the exact same thing for an enemy. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to say let enemy equal curly braces. And what do we want to know about our enemy? Their name. Same concept, right? So name, quotes, and then inside of the quotes, what do we want the name of our enemy to be? I came up with Slate. You guys come up with something else. Slug. All right, I like it. We got Slate and Slug. A slug doesn't seem like a very strong enemy, so what should Slug's health be? All right, I like it. 10. So I press enter, and now I have a hero, and I have an enemy, okay? If I type in enemy, okay, I have that. If I type in hero, I have this, okay? If I type in other words that I haven't like put into the computer memory, like jelly, it's going to tell me I have no idea what that is. Computer doesn't know anything. It can only do what you tell it to do. Computers cannot infer any knowledge. So everything when it comes to programming, you have to code out and you have to be very explicit about. I'm going to write clear. That's going to clear my console just so I have a little bit more room. But just because I cleared my console doesn't mean that my heroes are gone. If I refresh my browser, which I'm going to do right now, okay, my hero that I defined is now gone. That's something you should really know about the web. hitting the refresh button is like hitting reset. So anything you've coded, it's just gone. It's gone. It doesn't exist in computer memory anymore. And so if you want it back, you're going to have to redefine it. And that's why I'm getting heroes not defined. So if I clear this, I hit up a couple times. This is going to get me back my hero. This is going to get me back my enemy. Okay, we're going to type clear. Woo, clear. And now let's build a little game. Really simple game. And what are the actions we should probably be able to take inside of our game? What's the goal of my game? Kill the bad guy, right? So in order to kill the bad guy, I probably need to be able to do what? Perform an attack, right? Kick, punch, stab, all of those types of things, right? Maybe I have a sword. I don't know. Maybe he's got a big old hammer. Let's bring a big old fat hammer down on that slug, right? Squish it. I need to be able to attack. And anytime we are going to be performing actions within our code, okay, there's a difference between defining a piece of data and then defining an action. Actions are defined by what we call functions. And so a function is basically a set of instructions you're going to tell the computer about, and then you're going to say, but don't do it yet. I'm going to define a function, so I'm going to give you some things to do, and I don't want you to do it until I tell you to do it. But then every single time I ask for that action, I want you to repeat the exact same thing that I wrote out. That's the purpose of a function. So if we wrote something like function attack enemy, again, whole bunch of special syntax. I got special keywords here, okay? I got parentheses, I've got curly braces. Again, syntax, one of those things to eventually get over. The more you get exposed to programming, the more you're going to start to understand. So when I write this out, basically what I'm doing is I'm defining my instruction set, and my instruction set to the computer is going to be everything that happens in between the curly braces. This is going to be the name of the action, and everything else you see is, has to be there for certain reasons, and we'll talk about those later as we go throughout more of the course. So attack the enemy. Well, what do I want to happen to the enemy when I say attack enemy? Let's just keep this very simple. Let's say enemy dot health, and let's make it go down. So in order to make it go down, we're going to say something like minus equals 10. So we're going to make the enemy's health go down by 10. That's going to kill the slug in one hit. Maybe let's make him go down by 1 to get started. And then we're going to press enter. Okay. And if I look at my enemy right now, there's my slug. He's got 10 health. But what gives? I wrote a function, and the health is supposed to go down by 1 inside that function. Well, it will, but I have to invoke the function, or I have to call the function. I have to basically tell the computer, yeah, go ahead and do that thing. So in order to do that, I'm going to say attack enemy. Okay. And again, special syntax. I got to put these parentheses on here. And when I do it, we look at this and we're like, okay, did it work? And the only way to know if it worked is to look at the enemy again. So let's look at our enemy, and you'll notice that his health is now 9. And so, like I said, computers, they can't infer anything. They don't know anything. They don't know that just because you invoked a function called attack enemy, that the user would probably like to be able to see the now new health of the enemy. All of that is, that's our human knowledge. That's our human assumptions. And when you're programming, one of the hardest things to figure out is, where do your assumptions need to end and your code begins? Because if I want to be able to see the enemy right after I attack the enemy, I need to probably put more instructions inside of here. I need to be able to do a whole bunch of other things. Let's go ahead and run this again. We'll run it a couple of times. I don't know how many times I've attacked the enemy, but let's look at the enemy now. Oh, he's got 2 health left, right? So he's almost dead. Oops, let's do this. Let's attack the enemy 3 more times. What happened? If I look at my enemy, he now has -1 health. What does -1 health even mean, right? He should be dead. It's a video game, right? Video games, like, the bad guy's health can't drop below 0. That wouldn't be fair. I haven't coded anything out there for the computer to care about that. Again, an assumption would be health. We understand means that thing is alive. The computer doesn't have any knowledge or any inference as to what health should be used for. The computer's just doing math, and it's valid for math to go to -1. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So those are the types of things that, like, as the developer, they're your responsibility to handle. And because they're your responsibility to handle, you have to explicitly handle all of those types of things. Let's reset this. I'm going to say enemy.health, and let's have it go up, or let's just set it back to 10. Okay, so it looks like our enemy is alive again. I, as the developer, I get to decide, hey, if I change the data, that's what's happening. Let's go into our attack enemy function that we defined earlier, and let's do this. Let's tell the computer to take some sort of action. I want to know if the enemy is dead, tell the user, print a message, and then stop letting them, beat the guy beyond death, right? Like that seems like a reasonable thing to ask, right? The hero doesn't just sit there and continue to kick the dead horse, right? Like we will probably do many times, right? Beat the horse on this this course. But here's what I want to do. I want to say if, which is how computers can make logical choices. Okay, computers don't make choices. Programmers write in if statements that basically tell the computer do this or do that or perhaps do this, right? So an if is essentially a Boolean operation, right? It's basically going to say, is it true or is it false? And if it's true, do the thing. If it's false, don't do the thing. Okay. So it's kind of like writing a function inside of a function. It's some instruction sets to be executed later based upon a piece of data. So I want to say if my enemy.health is less than or equal to 0, let's go ahead and put a message out to the user. Okay. Now we're in a console environment, so I'm just going to write a message out to the console. And I'm going to do that by saying console.log. And we're going to say slug is dead. Okay. Now, as I attack my enemy, no message. No message. No message. Okay, I got to attack the enemy quite a few times before I finally get the message that he's dead. Okay, so that's the computer saying, hey, I'm not going to do that thing unless I'm supposed to do that thing. Okay, now every single time I attack the enemy, I get the slug is dead. Okay, I don't have anything in there though that's stopping me from, beating that slug beyond death, right? Which probably seems bad, which probably is one of those things that we should likely address. I'd also like to say maybe we could get a little bit more gamified here. Okay, we're not going to spend a ton more time on this because it just illustrates a concept. Okay, but let's go ahead and say that our hero, let's go all the way back to our hero, which is somewhere in here. There's our hero. I think it would be cool if instead of having the slug's health go down by 1, the slug's health goes down by the hero's strength or attack power, right? So let's call this attack power and set it to something like 5. Okay. That's like a basic punch from Slate. Okay. That's his attack power. Let's also go to our enemy. Here we go. There he is. And our enemy, our slug, he needs some attack power as well, right? Let's set the slug's attack power at 1. Okay. Still slug is an entry level enemy. Shouldn't take hardly anything for you to defeat a slug, right? And now, what if we said every single time that we attack our enemy, okay, we want the enemy's health to go down. Instead of going down by just 1, let's make it go down by the hero's attack power. Does that make sense? Okay. And so now when I say attack enemy, I hit him once, I hit him twice, and he dies. And if I keep hitting him, his health definitely goes down. Whoops. Woo, I can type. His health goes down by quite a bit more, right? So super cool, right? Now I can like power level my hero. When he kills the slug, I can make his attack power get even stronger, right? I could use experience. I could use a whole bunch of things. We're not going to get into all of that craziness. But what I do want to do is I want to give the slug a fighting chance, right? So every single time you attack the enemy, let's also assume that the hero health needs to go down by the enemy dot attack power. Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, it's blow for blow. It's fair, right? It's at least somewhat fair. Okay. And then I say, if the enemy's health is less than 0, I'm going to get this message. Okay. Let's go ahead and attack our enemy. Oh, wait. Let's reset Sluggy. Let's go enemy dot health. Set him back to 10. Okay. And now let's attack our enemy. And we'll attack our enemy. And the slug is dead. And if we look at it, it's true. His health is at 0. And if we look at our hero, we've taken 2 points of damage. Which is pretty cool, right? Super cool. Okay. I told you guys, this isn't going to be a fun game. Okay. But hopefully we're illustrating some basic concepts here. Okay. Now, what happens if I attack the enemy again? I still take damage. That's ridiculous. The enemy's dead. Right? Why in the world would I still be taking damage from a dead enemy? I don't like that. That's bad game design, right? We should fix that. It's our job. We're the software developers, right? So let's go ahead and go back to our attack enemy function. Remember that set of instructions. And I only want this to happen if the enemy's not dead. So maybe we do something like this, okay? This is kind of cool. We can show this. We can say, if the enemy's health is less than or equal to 0, we're going to say he's dead. Otherwise, surely he is alive. Okay? So we can say if